Hello and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about new upcoming mice and ones that I actually might be planning on getting. So first of all is the Zowie XE wireless or the Zowie MP01 wireless in a later date, probably in Q2 of 2023. But yeah, I am really excited for this because Zowie is very well known for their good build quality for a reason. I did test out the MP01 and yeah, the build quality was phenomenal. There was no creaking, no side flex at all. It felt super solid in hand. The only thing I didn't like about the mouse, and there's a reason why I returned it, was just because of the clicks. There was too much post travel on my copy for me, and so I returned it. Yes, I know it's picky, but I'm pretty clicky. I'm pretty picky about click feeling. However, they're using different switches on this, which they actually said are actually pretty light, which is interesting because they are rated for 70 grams. So yeah, I don't know about that, but that's pretty exciting if they actually are. And it's gonna be $120, so not like a ton cheap, not like a lot cheaper than the Zowie wireless mouse, but still cheaper, and a lot cheaper than the EU, where it's 50 euros cheaper than the 190 euro Zowie wireless mouse. And taking into account like shipping and stuff, it'll probably be about 15 euros, maybe a 15 euros more expensive, but even then, that's still a lot cheaper than the Zowie mouse, and it actually has up-to-date specs with an up-to-date sensor, and they're actually focusing on like polling stability and still keeping very high performance, which props to fucking Zowie for taking their time and actually ironing out issues before they release the mouse. And I have really high hopes for this mouse. And it also is 75 grams, which is not so much of a deal breaker to me as it might be to other people, because I've been using like a 70-gram mouse with the X-M1R for like 8 months now. So I wouldn't really mind like a 5-gram difference. But the next mouse that is on second of priority list probably is going to be the XM2W. Or the XM2WE, which is basically just a lower spec version of the XM2W that will release first. And it is, I'm pretty sure, $80, somewhere around $80 to $90, and that's a pretty good price for what you're getting. However, you're getting a slightly outdated sensor, which is not that big of a deal to me. A lot of people really don't like that, and yeah, I can see the problem when it's like $150 more expensive, like 190 euros, like Zowie. Like, yeah, they could have included a better sensor there, especially for that price. But for $80, I really don't see that big of a deal with this, especially because you can barely tell the difference between sensors. Yeah, the motion sync is going to be, there's going to be actual motion sync on like 3395s, but rather than that, it's not something I can really notice. And I think a better MCU and actual like polling stability is way more important than just an up-to-date sensor. Even if it's slightly outdated, is not that big of a deal to me, unless you're going like $150 or more like Zowie is. Which I will actually like retract that statement I said in my Zowie video. Yeah, that is a lot of money for just a kind of out of date sensor, even though like, yeah, it's a fucking great MCU. That's the point. But still, like, I think that's a little bit of an out of date sensor. But yeah. Also, all the controversy surrounding Zowie, calling people like porn shit, that's a pretty bad look for Zowie. But next on the list is probably going to be the Pulsefire Haste 2. And it's basically just a slightly improved version of the Pulsefire Haste, the original one. It just doesn't have holes, it's a solid shell, reduced weight, and an actually up-to-date sensor, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, that's pretty exciting. And it's going to be $80 for the wireless version, which is super cheap. And yeah, well, not super cheap, but it is pretty cheap, especially in like the scene of like $120 or $150 mice nowadays. Yeah, that is decently cheap. And I'm glad they're still going for budget prices. And $60 for a wired mouse that can go up to 8K hertz is pretty good, and is the only feasible thing, or is the only like reasonable thing I can actually say, yeah, like 8K hertz or 4K hertz actually kind of makes sense for wired mice because it doesn't have a battery. However, I don't really see the point of like 4K hertz or 8K hertz on like high high polling rates on like wireless mice, because it'll completely destroy your battery life. So yeah, I just don't get that, and it's like a very minute difference. Like you can notice it on like higher refresh rate monitors, but unless you're like a super pro gamer that really cares about like all the best frame, like not all the best frames, but like all the best performance you can get, like all that, then yeah, maybe go for it. But if you don't, then I just don't recommend that at all. But the before I go, the Zowie, or not the Zowie, what am I talking about? I talked about it like 10 times today already in this video. But the XM2WE is going to have optical switches, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I felt like they should have just put I feel like they should have just put the optical switches on the higher spec XM2W and should have just put the like custom KL switches on the previous mouse on the lower spec version. Because like why would you put optical switches on the lower spec? But I don't know. You might have a different take than me, but that's just my take. But yeah, that's basically it, and I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.